It's an incredible lineup of speakers today. But before I officially introduce everyone, I'd just like to acknowledge that the place on which I'm zooming from is on the traditional lands of the Bedegal people of the Aurora Nation, and I want to pay my respects to elders past, present and future. So my name is Jess. I'm a lecturer at Western Sydney University in sport management. I'm an Everton fan, as you can see. It's nice to put this on. I haven't had to wear it for a couple of weeks. So if there's any other Everton fans in here, I look forward to meeting with you. Today's session is talking about an incredible movement, an incredible exhibition, and kind of looking at female fans, particularly in relation to, you know, their role and their voices in supporting football, the world's beautiful game. I would like to have each of the panelists introduce themselves instead of me introducing them. That way they can focus on the areas in which, you know, they want you to know. So we might start with Daphne. Would you mind just introducing yourself to everybody?
Hi everyone, Daphne Goldschmidt from Jerusalem. It's great to see a ton of familiar faces. I am, as of yesterday, the former chairwoman of Hapoel Katamon Jerusalem, the first fan-owned club in Israel. We made our way from the 6th division all the way to the top tier of the Championship League, and we are actually hoping to promote to the Premier League this year. We're a very special and unique team. Obviously, a team I've been a fan of my whole life, but more than that, it's actually about using our power as a community to try and help others and use values like inclusion and against sexism and racism and all these awful things that are also happening around football, and actually using our stage, which is the football stand, as a place for a positive impact. This year, I also joined the SDE board now that I stepped down. And I was also part of Fan.Tastic Females with Greta, Nicole, and all these amazing women. And I can't wait to tell you more. And yalla Hapoel.
Oh, thank you so much. Greta, would you mind introducing yourself to everyone?
Sure. Thanks, Jess. Hi, everyone. My name is Greta. I am the project coordinator of the Fan.Tastic Females exhibition. Yeah, we've been working on the project for quite some years already, to be honest. Yeah, what can I say about myself? I've been a football fan for more than 10 years, and I'm quite entertained and engaging often with football and anti-discrimination work.
Brilliant, thanks Greta. And Nicole, would you mind just introducing yourself for us?
Hi, yeah, thanks Jess, and thanks to the Football Collective for setting up this session. I'm Nikki, I work for FBC. For those who don't know, FBC is Football Supporters Europe, a European network for football fans, under which umbrella the Fan.Tastic Females exhibition project is organized. Yeah, within FBC, I'm basically responsible for the administration and finances and all this stuff, and for the general organization and also for the respective projects we're working in. And I'm personally being a football fan since, I don't know, ever. And being active fan of FC St. Pauli, which is a German club from Hamburg, playing 2nd division most of the time. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you so much. All right, we might just start with the kind of introduction to the project, the Fan.Tastic Female Exhibition. Would you mind telling us, you know, what is it? What's the scope? What's the overall purpose of it? Greta, would you mind speaking to that?
Yeah, I can start. I think Nikki has also good insight in that. So yeah, basically to conclude it, the exhibition is about female football fans, also partly female athletes in football, who wanted to tell their stories. And the idea is that when in 2010 at the Football Supporters Europe European Football Fan Congress, there was a workshop on female inclusion in football and football fan culture. People said that they would like to have a way to address the topic without pointing a finger at the negative, you know, aspects of being a female in football. And the idea came up at the time already to have an exhibition promoting or presenting all the positive aspects of the different stories of women. but it stayed in a box for quite some years because there was no funding. But afterwards, I think about 8 years later, to be honest, Daniela Woops, the former CEO of Football Supporters Europe, and Antje Grabenhorst, a football fan and anti-discrimination activist, so to say, have been getting together and starting the exhibition. And the idea was to show the visibility, or to improve the visibility of women in the project, in football in general, also to include them more into decision-making processes. For example, if people are more aware that there are women, that they can also take part and be a complete part of the same processes that also the men have. Right?
Daphne, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, maybe I could add that we found it very important to highlight the variety of female fandom. So like the variety of females in their environment and their passion and their realities, but also the partially still challenging environment that female fans maneuver in still. Yeah, and of course to launch a discussion on the role of women in football. So to find out more about the status of women in professional football, but also how does it look like to date?
Excellent. Daphne, what's the interest been like in the project?
Come again, sorry?
What's the interest been like in the project?
I personally think, for me, I didn't really know. I remember Antje approaching me with the idea a few years before the shooting actually had begun. And I think I remember them coming to shoot me in Jerusalem. And I also remember the launch that was in Hamburg when St. Pauli was hosting everyone, and it was great. And I think it took me so long to realize there's so many similar women, because we're usually alone in the room. It's usually the only woman in the room. And suddenly you're around all these fantastic women, which is so true. You're also a fan, but you're also fantastic. And the diversity of having all of these aspects of fans and official positions and just ultras, it was so new to me. I felt like I was introduced to something way bigger than what I expected. So,
absolutely. Greta, there was a video that you wanted to show everyone in the group. Would you mind sharing that with everyone now, just so we can get an insight? Now we know a bit about the project. If we could just have the video shown, that would be amazing.
Sure. So maybe to introduce the video, it's the third trailer of the exhibition. We did one before the production was done, one to actually launch the first, presentation of the exhibition, and now after a year we produced a third one, including some stats and numbers. So maybe you have afterwards an idea of how the interest in the exhibition has been so far. I'll try that. I'm not too familiar with Zoom yet. Let's see. Here we go. Hope you can also have the sound.
Thanks, Greta. Certainly, it seems you've spoken to a lot of fans and people involved in sport. What have they told you about what it's like to be a female football fan? What have been some of the stories that you've heard from these fans that you've talked to as part of the project?
Well, obviously I can also only give you some examples, but maybe to start with, it's impressive how many similar stories we've heard when it came to negative experiences, also when it came to positive experiences. So apparently many women all around Europe, all over Europe, are experiencing similar things or similar situations. But for example, we have total empowerment stories, while on the other hand, people were also telling negative or sad stories. Someone who really stuck to my mind, for example, told the story of losing her husband, and through the mutual love for their football club, they still feel, she still feels connected to her past husband, and now hopes that their son together will one day also be in the stands where they stood together. And I really feel how emotional I still get when I tell that story, or also when I just look at the trailer, because I think everyone that has been involved is so proud of the outcome, and also of the how to say, the legend after that comes after the exhibition itself, because the story still goes on.
Do the other panelists want to share any experiences that they've learned from this project?
Daphne, do you want to go first?
Nikki, you go.
Yeah, I think not a particular story, but in total, I think it's pretty much that most of the portrait women have made negative experience in being women, but they all instead consider football in the stadium as their home. So that means for them continuity and passion for the game, and that through the exhibition we can show all of this diversity, people being part of the thing. And I can just underline what Greta just said, that I totally get emotional when seeing that trailer again, because it reminds me of a really great time we had and we're still having with this exhibition, because of all the basic feedbacks. We are we are pretty much overwhelmed on the success. And another thing which I found really good is that we're hoping to create role models for women, because that's the thing that didn't really happen in the past. And this is another sign of empowerment for other women, I guess.
I definitely agree with Nikki. And I also want to say, it's so innovative. FanTastic Females can double itself. It makes you realize there's so many women that you overnight or within minutes, with some of you call friends and sisters. And the thing is, I think the best thing about FanTastic Females, and I've been part of a few things since I've been in position for the past decade, it was so positive. It's right that you talk about the negative things, but it really is how you use the negative to motivate you to do things that are better. And it doesn't feel like FanTastic Females was charity or trying to bring inclusion or equality into sports or into the soccer football arena. It was actually showing that it's a necessary story to tell that so many people can relate to, and it made it so normal. Whereas usually when you have all these football stories or exhibitions or movies or trailers, it's always a different story. And here it was so positive, and it had so much positive impact. And it was amazing to me. So.
No, thank you so much. And just to pick up on what you were talking about, Nikki, in relation to visibility, I think that that's a really important point when we look at, you know, how football fans particularly are represented in the media, in academia. Female fans are often considered an ad hoc or kind of the exception to the rule. So I love the slogan around her story. So I guess I wanted to ask the panelists, you know, why is it important to have these voices heard? And, you know, what can we learn from the stories that you taught, and what recommendations have come out of this project?
I think what we can conclude is a positive thing is that networking amongst women really has a tremendous positive effect. It's so impressive how, like Daphne said, many of the women we brought together had the feeling that they were the only one, that they are the only one in the room with the boys making decisions, that they are aside from processes, that they are aside from the core of the whole thing, and that they're only an addition, so to say, a nice to have. But when they realize that even though they might be the only one at their own place, there are so many going through the same situations, through the same difficulties, but also sharing the same positive feelings for football, because everyone still is there because it makes you feel something positive. Even if you lose, even if you get relegated, even if you get angry because something happens to your club that you're not comfortable or happy with, the mutual feeling all the fans have is their passion and their love for their club or their national team even. And I think that is something that many women didn't realize before, that they are okay feeling this. Even if they are women, they are okay feeling exactly this feeling and wanting to be a part of it. And when they realized, even though I might be the only one at my place, there are so many others, and it's allowed to feel this way and to want to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Nicole, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I can underline that what Greta just said, and additionally, I think it's not about there's the female voice or however you call it, but to recognize that this is as diverse as other fans. So there's not the female voices, but there's so in contrary to male voices, female voices are as diverse as well. There's just one female voice. That's what I want to say. Yeah.
Nikki was saying it properly. It's the fact that inside the exhibition, the fact that they have the fans and the ultras and the position holders, every female fan can actually see herself in one of the 80 videos. It just really covers so much. And I think I began the shooting when I was in the shooting. I was still a board member. I became chair 2 years ago, so it was a bit after shooting. But I remember how many people that I never met before emailed me because they saw the FanTastic Female exhibition. They saw it in Hamburg, or they saw it in Bremen, or like, and just getting emails from people, thank you. And it's not necessarily women, it's also men. And it just shows how the impact goes beyond. I got the email of my video from someone from the MLS. Like, I have nothing to do with the MLS. And I still got it. And it's still someone from the US, middle of nowhere, that doesn't actually have a lot to do with our football, is emailing me about the FanTastic Female exhibition. So it has this amazing impact that we're not necessarily aware of. And that's amazing.
Absolutely. And I think you've touched on the ultras. You know, people don't often associate ultra culture with females. So I just, wondered, why do you guys think that is? Why do you think that it is so heavily entrenched in kind of masculinity, and just the norm is that it's men that are part of the ultra culture? Would you mind talking to that?
I think I can step into that because when we start talking about football culture in general, it's often male dominated. All of it, not only the ultra culture, but especially this one is considered or is associated with attributes that are traditionally male, so to say, being rebellious, being loud, fighting for your own ideas, also standing together, this boy club ideal, those kind of things. But I think that is a discussion generally about attributes being associated with genders, because all those things also women enjoy. Also women like to, stand up for themselves, like to be loud, to fight for their case, to be together in solidarity. Those are also things that women like. But I think the tradition in ultra culture to be male only is a discussion of access. It's not that women don't like to do that. It's, in my point of view, that they are not used to do it because they get brought up in a different way. They are taught to be, more respectful, to be nice, to step back for other people's needs. And when there's groups that also internalize those kind of attributes, they don't associate women with being in their group either. So it's a discussion of how the group is composed and what values they put forward and how they grant access also to women who also enjoy these kind of things. And when we think about different groups, it's really a difference. There's groups that have a high percentage of women, and there's also women in leading positions in those closed circles that make decisions, or even being in the top position if there's a hierarchy that way. But there's also groups that generally deny access to women. And that is a discussion that everyone has to have for themselves. And obviously, we can't understand how you can shut someone out because of their gender. But I think the idea of not associating women with ultra culture is a societal discussion, because it's just the idea of women act in a certain way and men act in a certain way. And if you see people acting in a certain way that is against their gender ideal, then it cannot be associated with each other.
Do the other panelists want to add anything to that? Really interesting discussion. Thanks, Greta. Daphne?
I'm not part of an ultras, but I work with my ultras, and I believe that just like Greta was saying, it's our society changing and ideas shifting. And it used to be very rare to see women in ultras, and we see more women stepping up. It's all about the organization and what their values are and how they may talk about being against sexism, but then don't actually accept women into their ultras, which kind of makes it the double standard that Greta was talking about. But I think we're shifting into the right position, into the correct position. It's just taking longer than we would have ever expected. But I think that the generation below us doesn't feel, it feels entitled, like nothing was ever different. So I truly hope the generation below us is fighting for it, and we will see it, but it's going to take time.
Absolutely. Nicole, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the same that what Daphne just mentioned before, because I mean, it's also important that way to remember that each country and each club and maybe even each fan group has a different way of dealing with women and sexism in general. So it's not really that you can say it works that way, this way or the others. It's most of all that everyone or every country or every club, I don't know, has to find a way to dealing with these kind of issues.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this when I introduced the panelists. There will be time for questions at the end. We've got quite a considerable amount of time. So if you have a question, drop it in the chat box. I can either ask it for you, or we'd prefer you to ask it yourself. But if you want to pop it in the chat box, I'll read through that and ask those to the panelists. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. Sorry. Excellent. So one of the key focus of the exhibition that I was kind of going through when looking at this incredible kind of project was not for your entertainment. And I think a lot of females can really resonate with that sentiment. I know personally, and I know from people that I've interviewed in my research with fan culture, is that women can tend to feel annoyed being approached by particularly men while trying to watch live footy. I just wondered, is that's been an experience that you've kind of uncovered, that kind of, constantly being checked on, your football knowledge and having those kind of questions asked of you that perhaps male fans don't necessarily receive as much attention. I wonder if that was something that came throughout the project. Greta?
Yeah, I'll try that. So, yeah, I think, like we already said, most or many women gave us positive and negative stories from their fan life. And when we introduced them, or when we started interviewing them, we didn't tell them, please tell us your experience as a woman in football. But many from themselves started to talk about it. We generally wanted to give them the room to tell us positive or negative feelings about being a fan while being a woman, but not telling us stories as a fan, definitely in connection to being a female. And so we got, for example, discussions on or stories on how bad it felt being relegated in one place. But many women directly went to a story where they felt discriminated against because of their gender. And I think many have the feeling that they cannot or are not taken serious as a fan. They feel like they often have to prove themselves. They feel like they often have to, know every single detail, which kind of a player had that particular way of shooting the ball 30 years ago against that team that you haven't heard about for 40 years. Those very particular things. And if you don't know that, you're not a real fan. But when you're a guy, they say people immediately accept you as a real fan. And I think that also contributes to being annoyed by other people in the stands, for example. We at Football Supporters Europe often mainly work with people that are going to the stadium. So we don't have that much experience of people, enjoying football only in front of the TV. But many people and many women tell us that they have negative experiences as women in the stands because they experience negative comments. They are not taken seriously. They cannot just enjoy football and being talked to. They cannot, watch the match in peace because people won't stop talking to them. And then it even gets into sexual harassment. So even that happens. And I think it's a whole new discussion that really needs to be on the table, because also women told us that since the exhibition exists, or since it has been at their own location where their club is located, they started to, get together with other women. They produced, different places to meet, for example, weekly discussions or a meeting point before home matches. And those women got together and they realized that they are experiencing the same negative things. And from now on, they said they will not longer tolerate it, because now they know that they're not the only one and they have a base to fall back onto. And I think those negative stories very much belong or are in every single female fan career.
Absolutely. Daphne, Nicole, did you guys want to add to that, the idea around females particularly having to prove themselves? And I can speak as an academic researching football fans. There was certainly an element of that in doing my research, having to, have a very intimate knowledge with Everton Football Club, or, using, I'm Australian, so, leaning on Timmy Cahill as my entry in. It was quite challenging to build rapport with fans doing research, and to, prove to them that, I not only was interested in their stories, but also that I was worthy of hearing their stories. So I just wondered if either of you could talk to that idea about having to prove yourself. It's exhausting, but, is that something that came through, and what can we do about it?
Daphne, I can't hear you.
Go, Nikki.
Okay, I don't know, but maybe through the improving of the network, or even through creating role models, we realize or we feel that the visibility of negative incidents being reported increasing. This is actually nothing or it's difficult to measure, I think, because there are no current researches on that. But we think that due to more women speaking openly in public, or there have been more points of contact, that more women feel self-confident to speak up about incidents that happen to themselves. And this, of course, opens the discussion.
I'm going to relate to Jess, talking about having the knowledge and maybe justifying yourself, imposter syndrome kind of thing, being female. It takes you a longer time to feel comfortable in the room. I look back where I was 5 years ago and where I am today. And it's also going through an internal process of actually bringing yourself to the table and saying something. So it's not actually arriving to the table. It's also making sure of how you use your power in the table. And that takes a very long time. And that's something I can relate to. But sadly, and I think I am not an example to anything or anyone that has spoken before me, Nikki or Greta, I have not experienced any of these things just because my club is very small and it refounded 13 years ago. So starting from a group of 1,000 people who are liberal in Jerusalem that believe in shared living and coexistence and all these beautiful things about civil society and living together, they were the ones to throw me to the water. I never saw myself actually going to the board. Everybody asks me how I succeeded. I succeeded with these amazing men by my side that basically kicked my ass to go on the board. And I never had the intention of actually being chairwoman. I was always terrified. I was like, why me? And at the end of the day, it was my organization. And it wasn't necessarily about me. I just felt like I wasn't maybe as worthy, but it was the people within my organization telling me, no, you need to step up and this needs to happen. So I feel very, very privileged. But again, this is grassroots, small club. So it's 13 years, it's a few thousand fans, but you based your values on that thing. So for me, it's been a very different experience, but I also totally relate to my European friends because I know how it feels, but I haven't experienced it, sadly.
Thank you for sharing. So that's kind of where we're at in relation to exploring this amazing exhibition. I really encourage you, if you haven't checked it out yet, have a look on Twitter, look at the webpage. There are some fantastic resources available for all of us to promote and to kind of encourage this, more visibility. I think this is the key word takeaway point from this session is visibility. We're here and, we've always been here. So it's about ensuring that, we have the platforms and that, we are kind of ensuring that those voices and those stories are getting told, not just through mainstream media, but also amongst each other to support each other and to ensure that, we can, continue to grow as a group. I would like to now open questions up to the floor. We've got 34 participants, which is brilliant. So if there's someone who would like to ask a question, I just ask you at this point just to jump in. I'm not the moderator, so I can't mute people. So if anyone has a question and they want to put it into the chat. Oh, sorry. If someone has a question, just jump in now.
So not a question so much as a comment. I think what's really cool about the exhibition is the scale of it. It's only when you look at it and visit it that you realize that the numbers of people that we're talking about, and it's actually quite emotional when you see it to such an extent. It's not just a couple of people. And as both of all the panelists have said, it's really great to see the amount of fantastic women involved in football in Europe, because there's lots of them. Speaking from my own context, I'm Irish, so the Football Association of Ireland, and last summer the council had 55 representatives and 1 woman. And there was a change at council, so now there's 72 council seats and 5 women, which is still pretty depressing, but it's progress. And I'm one of those on behalf of supporters, which is cool. But when I walked in the door the first day, the assumption was that it was because of gender quotas that I was there and not because I was actually able to do the role that was there. But I flipped that around, and the FAI opened a Women in Leadership program for football, and privately they had sort of said, oh, we're kind of concerned, we want to make sure we get the numbers for this, and it was hugely oversubscribed, and that was brilliant because there was women And this, I suppose, is my point. There's amazing women involved in football at all levels, and we just don't see it. They're not inclined to put their hand up. They're not inclined to speak. They're not inclined to put themselves forward into different positions and to have that visibility. And I think that's something that something like the Female Fantastics exhibition helps with. It's the visibility and that feeling that why don't you do this? Like, there's so many women out there, and there's a great opportunity here if you want to do it. So really thought the exhibition was great, and you know, it's opened up a far bigger discussion, and I think it's really important that continues.
Thank you for that. Casey, fellow Aussie, I know you've got a question. Did you want to ask that question to the panelists?
Thanks, Jess. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that. That was really enlightening to learn about the exhibition and hear more about your great work. And like Jess said, I think that visibility piece is just so important. And I think what I'm really interested in is what the next steps for that look like, because we know that we're so far away from normalizing all the different types of women as fans. Like you said, it's not just female fans as one voice. There are so many intersections there. And they're not normalized, and we're not seeing that in mainstream media. We're not seeing that in popular culture. Just randomly today, I watched the baseball iteration of Fever Pitch, the film that came out in 2005 for a project I'm working on, looking at female fans, and looked at the way that the woman is sort of characterized in that film as a fan, and the work that she does to try and become a fan, like buying all the books of the Boston Red Sox and going to every game. And she's busy at work, and she takes her laptop to Fenway Park, and she's demonized because she doesn't know the information already, and she's reading books. She's on her laptop in the stands working but not watching the game, and not celebrated for doing that work or being at the game despite that she's so busy. We just always see this flip that puts, I guess, female fans in a negative light. So with all of that sort of baggage that we come into the sport with and trying to find our own place, I was just wondering, looking at this exhibition and the power that it has, would you have any recommendations, or are you talking to clubs or sporting organizations to try and do more with it, or help encourage them to have any sort of further visibility pieces that they can incorporate to their brand or their club messaging to try and, I guess, keep this momentum going? Or I just wanted to hear what you think some next steps might be to, help fix this problem that we have.
I think as important as it is to have this discussion within the fan base and with each other, it's also important to step up and address, for example, the clubs, the leagues, or the national associations. So institutional wise, make them realize that women are not just marketing objectives. You know, we are not like there to be satisfied with pink shirts, a glass of champagne, or cheaper tickets. That's not the point. The point is that to realize also for clubs and leagues that we truly care about the game, and that women need to be addressed as well as fans, and foster a deeper and better discussion for further improvement. So yeah, maybe that's one way of going further.
Yeah, so we've got another question in from Ali. Oh, sorry, Greta, did you want to add something to that? Or Daphne, sorry?
I have an idea maybe still. From my projects experiences, I would also say when you go to your own community about your own club, there's always one person that really wants to change things. And it's so important to identify that one person. And by doing that, you'll come along even more persons. And the more you are, and the stronger you get together, the more solidarity you show for each other, the higher is the leverage with your club. And at one point, they will not be able to ignore you anymore. And even though, like Nikki said, there are already clubs and leagues that have an interest in women as fans, they often just assume what women want. For example, the pink shirts, or the cheaper prices for tickets, the females packages for Mother's Day, those kind of things. But they do not really engage with what basically the stakeholders of their club are interested in. And I think that is something that you really need to force, because as soon as you realize that you have some kind of leverage against your club, which you love, and that is why you're doing that, you have to make sure that they do not see you as an antagonist, but as someone who wants to improve things. You realize that you actually can do improvements.
So I'm gonna just add shortly off Greta. Our football clubs are our opportunity to prove how necessary it is to promote women. I think that I thought when I went into position that I'm changing the world for my club, right? But soon enough, I understood that solidarity is actually about using my power in the Ministry of Sports, in the FA, actually even if not being asked, saying what it is about women. In Israel, one of the most awful things is I am a chairwoman of a club that is forced to have women enter for free. So, and the thing is, the discussion was only with men in the room. So it's actually about fighting those decisions and not only using the power we have within our clubs, but also duplicating it and taking it outside our club as leaders or game changers. So.
Thank you for that response, guys. We've got a question from Ali. I'm just going to read it out. So it looks like there were some men in the video as well. Did you guys try and engage men as well? Or was it focused only on women? The reason I ask is because I feel like it's important for men to understand what it feels like for women so they can be part of the solution to help create more inclusive environments.
Well, maybe I can start with the production or the whole idea of the exhibition, because at that workshop back in 2010, there were mainly men in that workshop, and they also had a need for bringing the topic to the table. So first of all, yes, they were part of the whole idea basically, but also among these more than 500 volunteers that have been active in the project production and also in the touring, there were so many men, and the positive feedback has been so impressive. Many said that they now finally understand what it should be like as a woman in the stands, and that they started to have that conversation with those women that they have in their surroundings. So I think that is already a start, but definitely it's a difference in just making them aware of how things are and how things need to be. Because with all the societal discussions, also in Me Too and other outrages on sexism in the whole society, those stories have been told for years and years and years, and few things have changed. So it's not enough to point out what the problem is, but also to engage people in the ideas that they have, and to make them understand, for example, why it is necessary to have safe spaces, why it is necessary, for example, to have a point where women amongst themselves, without men, can speak with each other, can point out things, can find new ways how they want to deal with stuff. Because often when a woman is with a man, for example, in the stands, all those negative situations will not anymore appear, because as soon as you're accompanied with a man, negative comments don't come up anymore. So they don't have a feeling for how it is being there in the moment, but by telling our stories, they already have an idea. And I think sparking that discussion and then including them in the process of how to improve that is absolutely necessary.
Great. So Alex, you have a comment for the panelists?
Yeah, thank you very much for a very nice discussion. Well, I'm an economist. Hi, I'm not a fan of Hapoel Jerusalem, but I'm Israeli. Anyway, I'm an economist, and the one thing that is important to say that having more women on board of companies is not because of their beautiful eyes, it's because they contribute, and it was proved in many papers, many academic studies, that companies with more women on board are more profitable. There are papers that show that women perform better than men under pressure. There are studies that show that if you have more women traders in the stock exchange, you have less bubbles. So beyond the fact that this is important to have gender equality, it is also justified economically. So those things you also should promote. And if you want, I can send you several studies that show those things. And once you come to those macho men and tell them, look, it's not because of our beautiful eyes, we can contribute. Our company can be profitable. This is a much better argument. Not much better, but this is also a nice argument, okay? Beyond having more women just like that. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex. Yep.
Can I add on, Alex? Alex, thank you for saying it's not only beautiful women in the room, I agree, but think about how many men without beautiful eyes are also sitting in that room. And I think that's the biggest problem. It's not that the room is becoming bigger. The thing is, you're saying, okay, there's room for less men in the room, and for them to step down is for us to step in. I think it was what Niamh was saying. It was like, oh, we have 75 members now, but it's only 5 women. So of course it's an increase, but it's nothing. The point is only having privileged people in the room. The discussion being around people that are accountable, responsible, and are not only there because they're male or female, and it works both ways. So I think there are a lot of non-relevant people in football in general. And when the room is becoming smaller, or 50% of the seats men need to give up, it's a very big war of power that is way beyond us being women. And thank you for sharing, Alex, as well.
Thanks, Niamh. Did anyone, so we've got just a couple of minutes left. Did anyone have any other questions they would like to ask the panelists? Just jump in.
Maybe, if not immediately, I would suggest that, because we're currently in that COVID-19 crisis, I would just shortly introduce the online offer that we have with FanTastic Females, because usually it's an offline exhibition and we tour from places to places. But right now that obviously isn't possible. So that would quickly maybe give you an idea of how the exhibition look, and maybe until then, there come up some more questions.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right. I'll try sharing again. It's basically a virtual reality of how the exhibition looked like at St. Pauli Museum in Hamburg when we first launched it. While entering the exhibition online, you have access to every single information that we have in the exhibition. Not only the video portraits that we have already seen in the trailers, but also, for example, historic statistics. We have a different approach, or women always in different categories. For example, we have the topic of fan violence in football, but also the media coverage, those kind of things. And afterwards, when you entered the first room that includes the FanTastic Females portraits, you see different panels that will include different portraits of women from, like we already said, more than 20 different countries. And those will include the different videos where they tell their own stories, because that is our idea of the exhibition, that those women can tell their own stories and that they will not be told by someone about them. And like you see, we can go from room to room. They have different colors here, and those colors represent the different categories in which the women are, so to say, organized, because we wanted to make the exhibition diverse, but also possible to navigate. For example, the yellow stands for people or women who have an official position in football. Those white portraits are fan groups that only consist of women. Then the blue one are transnational or national networks, so fans that do not only belong to a single club or team, but organized nationwide. The yellow, the red room shows you icons of football fan clubs. That means that is that one single woman you think about when you think about your club. And when we come to the end, we see the not for your entertainment part that we've already talked about it. We call it the Women in Football Bullshit Bingo. Those are slogans that women often get confronted with when they appear as fans in the stands, from where's your boyfriend to show me your tits, there's everything. Yeah, and you can enter those this 3D exhibition while the COVID-19 crisis still prevents us from touring. You get a ticket code after sending a small donation to our PayPal account, so we can keep on doing the project and still organizing it while the crisis holds us hostage and we cannot tour. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Greta. How might people access that web link? Like, what's the best way to do that?
I can show you that as well if you would like to have a look there. 1 second. We have a website called Fan.Tastic Females.org. Here you can also see the trailer we've seen before, and on the right-hand side you see FanTastic Females at Home, which is the online offer that is online as long as the crisis is taking place. It will introduce you to what exactly the project is, and after making a small donation via PayPal, you see that while clicking on this link, or while using this donate button in the upper right corner, you'll send a small donation, whatever you like to contribute, and afterwards you'll get an email with a link that will give you access to the restricted area, so to say.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Greta, for showing us that. I'm sure everyone will jump onto that. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but unfortunately, we've run out of time. There's another session happening, so we're mindful of time. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of our panelists, and thank you so much for showing and talking about the amazing exhibition. If anyone has any questions, I'm sure they can contact you via the webpage. But I would also like to thank everybody in the room, 40 people here to kind of hear these stories and discuss women in sport. It's an area that we often are told is not interesting. So I would just like to, thank everyone for coming in. It's a real the amount of people here today is a real testament, not only to the amazing work that's being done, but to the interest of female fans in general. So on that note, thank you so much. I hope everyone stays safe and well. For those in Australia or England or Europe, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next session. So thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Greta, could you stop the record now?